Hi everyone, Laszlo Montgomery here. This episode is the first in a series that will introduce you, Chinese speaker or non-Chinese speaker, to the interesting and amusing world of Chinese sayings. I thought I'd kick off the series with one of my personal favorite sayings. I came across this one back during the early Reagan years, right after I began my Chinese studies. This one isn't terribly well known, but it's a very nice textbook example of how some of these Chinese idioms and proverbs work. As I explained in the introduction, standing on their own, it's hard to tell what some of these seemingly meaningless phrases are all about. But if you know the backstory, suddenly it becomes crystal clear what's up with that saying. Like most of these chengyu, or idioms, this one's only 4 syllables long. Guā Tián Li Xià, 4 Chinese characters. A guā is a melon, just a generic term for any kind of melon. Tian is a field, so Guā Tián is a melon field. Li, well, is a character that can be a number of things. It's the character for most of the people with the Li surname. A Li is also a plum, and that's what it means in this case, specifically a plum tree. Xia, the final character, means underneath or below. So, say these 4 characters real fast and you get Guā Tián Li Xià. Melon Field, under a plum tree. Must be a story behind that one. Indeed there is. Otherwise, this whole podcast series would lack a main point. The story behind Melon Field under a plum tree goes back to the 2nd century, the time of Commodus in Rome, his last year. He was the loony emperor of the 2000 movie Gladiator. In China, this was the period of the Eastern Han Dynasty. Clock is ticking down on this dynasty, and it will come to an end in the year 220. There was a poem from that time that's called the Song of the Gentleman, Junzi Xing. Now, contained in the lines of this poem were the words, Junzi fang wei ran, bu chu xian yi jian, Guā Tián bu na lü, Li Xià, bu zheng guan. So what does that mean? Well, a junzi is a gentleman. Fang wei ran, in order to prevent, bu chu xian yi jian, anything looking suspicious. Guā Tián bu na lü, never ties his shoes in a melon field. Or Li Xià, bu zheng guan, adjusts his hat under a plum tree. Now, if you're in someone's melon field and you see your laces are untied, for God's sake, wait until you're out of the field before you tie them. Otherwise, someone might see you from a distance and wonder, what's that guy doing kneeling down in that melon field? Is he stealing something from that farmer? And if you're chilling under a plum tree, waiting for someone perhaps, don't go fiddling with your hat. If someone sees you with your arms up in the air underneath a plum tree, they might misconstrue your actions and think you're stealing fruit. The Song of the Gentleman, from which this chengyu example is derived, came from somebody you probably never heard of before. His name was Cao Zhi. He wasn't well known, although in his day he was quite a celebrated man of letters. His father is one of the giants of ancient Chinese history, and I would dare to say might make the short list of the top 10 best-known Chinese leaders of all time. This was Cao Cao. He was the chancellor during the last dozen years of the Eastern Han. He was the most powerful military man and political figure in China at the time, and used his military might and control of the Han emperors to enhance his legitimacy. Cao Zhi's brother, which also made him Cao Cao's son, was named Cao Pi. Now, he ended up founding the state of Cao Wei. And this Cao Wei state later will become one of the 3 kingdoms that contended for control of a unified China. Cao Zhi teaches us that a gentleman should exercise proper judgment at all times and never allow himself to be observed in circumstances that might be considered of a suspicious nature. He teaches that a gentleman should conduct himself always in such a way that no matter where he is or what he's doing, no one's going to look suspiciously on him and wonder, what's up with that guy? What's he doing over there? So when you're trying to tell someone don't get caught in suspicious circumstances, you just say to them, hey, Guā Tián Li Xià, melon field under a plum tree. And because you're all now properly schooled in Cao Zhi's story, you hold the key that unlocks the meaning behind this seemingly meaningless phrase. Melon field under a plum tree. Guā Tián Li Xià, ladies and gentlemen. So keep that in mind. Not just gentlemen, everyone. Don't put yourself in a situation where you're potentially suspect. You may be found guilty without even committing the offense. It's not as bad as getting caught with your hand in the cookie jar, but in a melon field under a plum tree kind of situation, you definitely might have your hand on the lid. So that is our CSP for this time. Chinese Sayings Podcast. If you found it to your liking, come back for more next time. I'll be offering you up another pearl of wisdom from China's ancient philosophers, warriors, writers, statesmen, and kings that still, thousands of years later, resonates in our modern 21st century world. And for some enjoyable readings from antiquarian books by writers who traveled to China during the 18th and 19th centuries, let me turn you on to the China Vintage Hour. You can find the China Vintage Hour and this very Chinese Sayings podcast at Teacup Media. That's teacup.media. Tell them Laszlo sent you, of course. And for more than 100 hours of Chinese history from the earliest days to our modern time, check out the China History Podcast. All available for you 24/7 at teacup.media. We're open on Christmas and all major bank holidays. Until the next time, me little beauties, this is Laszlo Montgomery signing off from hot and sunny, fantastic LA. Do consider coming back next time for another delicious and satisfying episode of the Chinese Sayings Podcast.